Jesus invites us to perfection. Like, those are his words to us, is be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. If we were to face this under our own strengths, I'd be scared to death.
Thomas and Daniel, welcome. Thank you for coming here all the way from
Down the
road. I have been looking forward to having this conversation with you two guys about just being men. So you two you served as missionaries for, you've been 3 years on 3 different teams, am I right in saying that?
Indeed, yes.
You've been on one team and you're now on serving on staff with Net Ministries, and we just thought we'd have a conversation about what it was like and what are the challenges facing men in Ireland as Catholics, that type of thing. Because lots of people are aware about what happens to women and women's issues and all that sort of thing, and not to denigrate what is going on for women, but to just elevate maybe some of the things that men face and some of the challenges that we're up against. Sheena, how do you feel about that?
Great. I think it's great that you two are here, and looking forward to hearing your stories and what you have to share with people. Yeah,
for sure. And yeah, I think it's true. There's I think there are challenges for all of humanity, and that's showing up differently for men and for women. But also at the same time, I'm very encouraged at what actually is happening as well. So I think there's a lot to say here on both sides.
Good. Yes, because we are a positive podcast here.
yeah, totally. And also, like, let's first establish some ground rules, or some first principles. Is there a difference between men and women?
Yes,
absolutely.
How so?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's very distinctive features that male and female have, but also then there is a lot of internal features as well, with the mind, with all that sort of thing. That distinguishes the difference between a man and a woman.
Okay. Thomas, would you agree? Or
yeah, it's been so for me, I grew up wonderfully outnumbered by sisters, which has been honestly a joy. So that really has my experience of life beyond the family, when I've moved out of the home and I've been in a place where I'm interacting more often with more men, more peers who are male, on a more meaningful level than just like being classmates or whatever. That has, it's been really interesting to see the way that there are differences between men and women, and how those just contribute to living a full life. But yeah, just having the opportunity to see that so clearly illustrated, because I've had the opportunity to live so closely with so many wonderful people. That's been really, really good.
So when you talk about like the difference between a relationship with like your classmates and the relationship with, I presume, the men that you're living with now, can you give us a little bit more insight into what you mean by that?
Sure. I think for me personally, I was not the popular kid at school, certainly. I also wasn't the outcast kid. Like I was kind of middle of the road, didn't, so it sounds very dramatic if I'm like, I never fit in and nobody
That's
loved
not what
me.
you mean. You're just a bit nerdy kind of thing.
Yeah, I'd say so. Which, that's, I love it.
Yeah.
But the side effect of that, I think was, and certainly throughout life, I've seen just a deficiency in male relationships generally, among groups of men. They can be very shallow, and because a lot of my sort of surface level interests weren't the same as a lot of the guys I was around. I'm not like hugely into sports or anything like that. And that just happened to be a big interest for a lot of the guys that I was around through school, through university. And so I felt like I'd reached my limit with that sort of connection. Actually, when I applied to become a missionary with Net, I knew that Net has this focus on sisterhood and on brotherhood, and really the relationships between men and women, both separately and together, and really has a good balance of that emphasis. And I was a bit hesitant coming into that, because I thought, oh, well, if I'm not really clicking here, like, how much worse is it going to be? And I spoke to my spiritual director about it, actually. And the thing he said has stuck with me, and I think about it all the time. And he said, you qualified for brotherhood when you were conceived. And that really kind of changed my perspective.
Wow.
And it's unlocked so much over the years as well.
And when you say brotherhood, do you mean the brotherhood of men or something specific within net?
A bit of both. A bit of both. I mean, the way that brotherhood is lived out on net is very intentional, very healing, challenging in a very positive way, very, very upbuilding. But it's also, it's influenced the way that I relate to men generally. Also with my own like biological brother, because I have one brother and 3 sisters. So having a wider experience of brotherhood in a sense, although it's not really the same as biological brotherhood, has really improved our relationship, my relationship with my biological brother. Just having a better grasp of the breadth of what masculinity can be and what it can look like to relate in that kind of space.
So I want to make sure that we're not here to advertise net. Okay, so if this sounds like a net advertisement, it's not. We just thought we shoot the breeze, having a conversation about being a man in today's culture and what's it like to be friends as Christian men, specifically because we feel like we have something to offer as a ministry to that. And I know the women, would you say that about female friendships?
I'm sorry, I'm still back at that phrase you use, surface level interests. Like that is blowing my mind, because I have been in situations where that's as far as it goes, but I've never been able to coin the phrase. Like, that's a really good phrase for surface level interest. And at the same time, my mind is going to a place of a book we read a couple of years ago by Matthew Kelly, The 7 Levels of Intimacy. And he talks about those 7 steps in relationship or friendship. And that a lot of people are not able for any further than surface level interests, Whereas before I read that book, I would have been disappointed, in people that, we can't go deep, but it's just not.
And it's also an invasion of somebody's privacy potentially to actually expect them to go there without really knowing them. Daniel, what would you say in terms of your experience growing up? And, there's probably 10 years of difference between the two of you guys, but the two of you were on team last year. And, would you describe yourselves as friends?
Yeah, I'd say we're great friends.
Yeah. Okay. So like, Daniel, what's your experience of, the Christian friendship as opposed to, secular friendship?
Yeah. So, I mean, I probably had a different experience than Thomas in terms of that. Growing up, like I was on the more popular side, so that would mean in terms
even
of
if I say so myself,
I don't say that to be prideful, but
you
that
played
was
county football or county
hurling. Yes, So
ipso facto, you can't avoid it.
And so I mean, I had a lot of friendships, I would say, from those sort of things, especially from sports, I would say. But for me, the standout thing, and this is where like the differentiation, was doing the Camino. So I'd done the Camino with a bunch of random lads who I think four or five of them are, there's 2 English guys, 2 Spanish guys, never met them since. But in that week of doing the Camino, we just done a slight part of it. In that week of doing the Camino, better friendships than with a lot of my friends who I've known for 14 years, 15 years. And it was because of the faith element, because of having that foundational sort of rock, that we can all then grow outward from and grow in whatever sports,
you just
whatever
have
it
that
is.
common denominator.
Yeah.
And would you say that what Thomas experienced growing up, that he didn't have deep male friendships, was that true for you?
Yes, I would say up until like 15 or 16. And then I was made to go to a few retreats and stuff like that. And I really experienced like those authentic brotherhood and sisterhood friendships, but specifically male on male friendships that I still have. I still absolutely have the best of crack, the best of fun.
So drugs?
Not drugs. For non-Irish, crack means yes, bit of fun. But yeah, still have the best of times with them. And it's because, or I put it back to having the common denominator, you know?
Yeah. And it's not to say that, you know, that it's not available for people outside of the faith environment. It is possible, but it's just part of who we are as Christians, that we, you know, the spiritual life is who we are deep within us. And in order to walk alongside somebody, essentially, we talk about what's going on deep within us. And those are conversations that generally don't happen at a secular level. And it's not that surface level friendships are bad. They are good, but it's like the starter in a menu or in a meal and not going to the main course.
Yeah.
Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah. I actually didn't realize that you could make friendships go deeper up until doing that communion and having those friendships. Like before that, I was like, this is it. You play the sports, you go out for whatever, you know, go out for drinks, go out for this thing, go out for that thing. But that's it. And you have those conversations. They're beautiful conversations and you will have great times with them, but I didn't realize it can go and should go deeper as well, you know.
And what would you say to somebody who would say to you, maybe some of your secular friends, that's a bit gay?
That's a bit gay. I would say it's not at all. I think, yeah, I mean, it's rooted in, first of all, okay, for a more secular, maybe this won't be as good, but in the Bible as well, like you see so many male on male friendships. It's needed, like masculinity bestows masculinity. You know, you can't receive masculinity from femininity. You know, it only works one way. It doesn't bounce off each other. So there's that element. And then saying it's gay, I mean, then you could call pretty much anything, you know, anything like that gay. It's a friendship that I don't know. I just think it's foolish, you know?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. And on that as well, I think that there's a trend, and you see it especially in sort of, I want to say teenage circles. It's very trendy to call things gay if you don't like them or whatever. And like,
just there are a lot of slang word.
Right. And there are a lot of problems with that as well. But also I think that, you know, we have kind of reduced the concept to like, oh, it's a behavioral trait rather than actually like, no, it is a part of the human condition that is experienced by some people. And I don't know if you guys have read.
Are you talking about gay now? Or
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have read Wild at Heart.
Yeah, John Eldredge.
It's not the be all and end all of describing masculinity, but I think it has some very important points to make. And one of the things that he actually says, which I thought was really interesting, is that actually there's a particularly special place for men who are gay in these friendships to have the friendship element, to have that sanctifying friendship. And he says that you know, they actually have an instinctive awareness if that's something that their heart needs, where a lot of the time, I don't think that you know, for anyone else, it's not an instinct. I think it is an instinct. It's just particularly highlighted there. I thought it was very interesting that he brought that out.
Yeah.
But I think, for anyone who has that desire for intimacy generally, we want it. And we, as you say, we sometimes get stuck at the surface level, which, you know, it's a good thing, but yeah, it's a first step.
Totally. My first encounter with Wild at Heart, the book by John Eldredge, was with Matt Fradd. So I was involved way back in the day at a board level, and we befriended Matt and Cameron, and Matt waxed lyrical about Wild at Heart. So of course I had to read the book. And I have to say, because I grew up in a different era, it didn't speak to me at all, because it just described my childhood. Like what it was having to emulate was my childhood. Like we just went out and we played and we did what would now be perceived to be crazy stuff, but was just normal. You know, kids, we were not exceptional. Kids just did stuff like that. That was just what you did.
Oh yeah.
You know,
it's a blessing. It's a real blessing.
Yeah. Now it has to be play dated, organized, and you know, you need to do a health and safety inspection before your kids play together. You know, like literally that's like we burned some wardrobes here last night, literally. old wardrobes.
Useless.
And we had Sheena's nephews and niece up, and this is just what we did. And it was just like, oh, do we do a health? No, you just let them, they'll figure it out, you know, and nobody died.
Yep.
You know, it was just normal. It's a bit of fun.
I do have to say, like, I do think there is pockets of that. Like there is still some families, but as a general thing, that would be like very much frowned upon these days, which is just so sad, you know?
And would you say that the stuff that we're talking about, like particularly physical activity, that some like burn stuff, break stuff, you know, whatever it is, you know, that is typically male, or is that in our who we are, or what? Like what is that? Because that seems to be what we're talking about, but not actually saying it.
I think about this a lot because I think that my sort of anecdotal experience is that myself and my male friends will be like, yes, let's build a really big fire. Let's find the biggest rock we can and throw it into the sea from the top of the cliff. And there's something just glorious about it. And my female friends, it's not that there's a complete disconnect from it, but it doesn't seem to do the same thing for them. I don't know if, Sheena, if you are habitual thrower of giant boulders off of cliffs. But.
No, I'm definitely, I was thinking we'd probably be finding the nicest tea shop and going for a walk on the beach. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's sometimes the stuff that men do, not in order to be men, but it's just part of us, is actually a little bit dangerers. And sometimes it's a lot dangerous. And sometimes it's just downright stupid. But it's kind of what we do, you know? It's I don't know if you remember the zip wire that we had across the backyard. So we have a huge, we live on a 6-acre plot in the middle of a forest. And the boys set up a zip wire when they were teenagers and bought the stuff themselves, built the zip wire and hung it in the whole lot. And we wouldn't allow anybody else's kids for fear that they would hurt themselves when they were here, unless the parents were actually there to say, yes, it's okay that my child goes down the zip wire. But if you want to tell the story about Joe.
Oh my gosh. It was Joe's, was it his 18th birthday? Anyway, it was a significant birthday. And all the lads were there and there was a bonfire and he was dying to get on this, they were all dying to get on the zip wire. And we were like, Joe, you should go first and show them how to do it anyway. It must have been his 18th because we wouldn't have given consent otherwise. Didn't it flip and snap? It snapped and he fell on his back. And, you know, my first reaction was, thank God it was Joe. And then I was like, oh no, I shouldn't be thinking like that.
Yeah, and he was okay, thankfully, but it could have been really bad. You know, that's just the reality.
So do you think I'm literally thinking, talking as I'm thinking here, do you think part of it's like prehistoric inbuilt in men to build, to create, to protect, you know?
Yeah, I heard something I also read it a few times in different things, can't quote any books exactly, but that one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing a man longs for is an adventure, and then a beauty to pursue. That's also a quote from Wild at Heart. But that sense of like jumping off a cliff into water, throwing boulders off. I also heard a really interesting sort of take on that was that video games, so violent video games, a lot of the reasons young, especially men, play those is because there's that sense of adventure that they crave, and they can find a tiny snippet sort of that and receive a tiny snippet of it from the video games. Whereas like they're not actually going out and experiencing that sort of, but it's also, I suppose, interesting then you could take that into as well, that having those mistakes, especially with men, like how you learn so much from that, you know, like I can think of one where me and my brothers were allowed to mess with the hammers that we were probably like 5 or 6, you know, just wallop away at wood in the garden, make some wooden airplanes, whatever it was, and I got absolutely clattered on the finger by one of the hammers off my brother. But after that, I was safe with a hammer. And then I remember going into secondary school, some of the lads that were with the woodworking tools and stuff like that, because they'd never experienced those sort of like the availability to go out and mess in the woods, chop up stuff, whatever. They were like awareness to those sort of things was next to none, you know. One of the guys chiseling towards them and stuff like this, you know, but you're just like, you know, you're asking to die or something, you know, with those sort of things. So they were never given those chances to have that sense of adventure, you know. So you see that sort of. So
Daniel, it sounds like you were brought up similar to our boys, that it was just like, go have at it, just don't kill yourself, you know. You might lose a limb, but don't kill yourself. And it's not like, I'm not being flippant when I say that, like kids don't want to lose a limb and they're not going to lose a limb, 100%. But just, you know, that sense of realizing what is dangerous and what is not. And you know, that definitely informed me in my adult life in terms of doing crazy things like leaving a business and joining Net. You know, I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't learned danger, the potential of taking risks, and you know, this could go south. And Sheena and I had a conversation, you know, we could lose the house here, you know, are you still willing to do it? And you said, yeah, let's do it anyway. But because we had grown up in an environment whereby that was okay, and that we had learned a lot, we were allowed to make mistakes, and we had learned an awful lot through just being allowed to do our own thing. You know, that we learned that, well, the worst thing that can happen is I fail. I'm going to live, you know, we'll live through this. The worst thing that happens is this net thing. It doesn't work, and we'll figure it out. We'll figure out what else to do, but at least we'll have tried. And, but Thomas, how would you describe in terms of that description? How would you describe your own upbringing? Would you have been protected more or?
Not really, no. So I was homeschooled, which meant that sort of the schedule for the sort of pen and paper learning was very flexible, which was great because it meant I got to spend a lot more time outdoors than my peers who were in school.
Interesting.
So I was homeschooled up until I was 13. So that was kind of the time frame. So that really sort of crucially developmental time. I spent a lot of time out in the forest, climbing trees, falling out of trees.
Did you break anything?
I never did. No. And you would find a stick that looked like a sword and sword fight with the other kids, and somebody would get their fingers hit, and then they'd be sad, and then you'd kind of be like, okay, well, that's what happens, and then you kind of move on. And it's it didn't become like a big deal or anything, but it was very, very formative. What is really striking to me though is that we're talking about, at the moment, we're talking about masculinity as a set of like behavior traits or a set of activities. But it's been, over the last few years especially, it's been crucial to me to unpack that a little bit and go, actually, these things are a consequence of masculinity rather than the definition of it. And what's really unlocked that for me is just going back to sort of male-male friendships, is diving into those at a particularly deep level. And I was, just going back to what you were saying about the willingness to take risks. I think where that, in today's world, that often breaks down is men often are reluctant to take the risk of being known by each other, which is a shame because it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to be known and to have the privilege.
What do you mean? Define what you mean by being known.
So going back to this sort of idea of surface level interests, one thing I noticed when I was a university student is I was part of the Catholic chaplaincy community at my university. It was at university in Glasgow. Wonderful place to be. Wonderful Catholic chaplaincy. A lot of men were involved, which doesn't always happen in Catholic circles. So that was a real blessing. But the sort of level of interaction between them tended to be fairly surface level. And so conversations revolved around sports games or academic stress or church politics or secular politics or whatever the discussion topic was, or even like particularly involved pieces of philosophy, but remaining kind of removed from lived experience.
How they felt themselves. It was more about the concept rather than the lived experience.
Yeah. So I remember having a conversation with a couple of my closer friends, and we were like, we actually want more. Wow. We want more for each other. We want more for ourselves in this. And so we decided to say, well, what out of like the riches of the church can we find? Because we want to base what we're doing in Christ, and we want it to be Christ-centered. So we found a document that was written by Pope Benedict before he was Pope Benedict on Christian brotherhood. And the thing that I remember like taking away from that, this is a big simplification of what it says, but it was this idea that Christian brotherhood is not completely inclusive and not completely exclusive. It's this kind of in-between thing where those who are ready for that level of commitment to each other have a space for that. And then the difference to the way that we might be tempted to approach this in a secular sense, and indeed in a historical sense, you see this throughout civilization. The men on the outside of this are not your enemy. They're potential brothers. And that's the real key.
Is that what you mean by the inclusive exclusive thing?
Yeah. So because not everybody has good intentions, right? So you have to be prudent and you have to be careful. And if you're talking about intimacy and vulnerability, there has to be a level of care for yourself and for other people that comes with that. I mean, of course, this goes for everybody. This is not just about brotherhood.
Totally, yeah. But women are typically better at seeking each other out and making space for that vulnerability.
And would women typically be vulnerable at on an early encounter, or do they have to know each other for a long time, or does it depend
no,
on the woman?
I think trust has to be built first,
So
like
same
you're
as
saying.
men.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think definitely trust has to be built. Yeah, and also like formation has a lot to do with it as well. Like if it's something that you didn't grow up with, you know, people never talked about their feelings or you know, understand the concept that I am actually body and soul, and that I'm not just about what's here. I do have an interior life as well. Then that can be really hard then to talk to somebody who just doesn't get it, you know. And that's not to say you're better than them. They just don't know or have never had the language.
Yeah, for sure.
I'd love you to go back and unpack that thing, because I didn't really get what you were saying about
inclusive, exclusive.
No, before that, about masculinity, the traits versus the
right. Yeah. So
yeah, I was like, what?
Yeah. And this goes back to the idea of
Sorry,
like,
Daniel.
Sorry, Daniel. We'll get to you.
This is very interesting.
Just to put it in context, Thomas is a writer, and you wrote for The Alive. I'm not sure if you're writing for The Key. Is it they call it now?
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So
okay. Fire away.
So yeah, that's
Daniel.
That's why
does not write for The Key.
But no, I don't.
You have
This is
like
this is it's good. This is why we're here. We're having a chat.
This is I think what I'm getting at is that there's I think it's very fair to say that Daniel and I are very, very different people, and were we to only connect on our surface level interests, I don't know, we'd be friends.
Interesting,
right?
Yeah.
This guy, he's athletic. He plays sports. He's one of the popular kids. I like on a surface level,
he's cool,
right? On a surface level, we don't connect. Like on a secular level, I don't. I'm 10 years older. Why, would he talk to me? Why would I talk to him? On a secular level, that's basically where we're at. But, because we have the foundation of faith, because we have that understanding of our identity as children of God, as sons of God, specifically as men, because we're able to base our understanding of who we are in Christ, we already understand each other very, very deeply just on that level. And of course, there's personal growth and personal encounter that goes into our specific friendship. But one of the things that has really characterized it for me is that I have been invited to grow in the ways that Daniel already is living out his masculinity. So as I say, I'm not sporty, I'm not athletic. That has been like when you're talking about sort of surface level interests, that's where I break down with a lot of other guys. Like, unless we can get to a deeper thing, there's not much connection there for me. But there's also in me a desire to kind of live up to that standard. And for a long time, that came from the surface level desire. Like, I want to be like the other guys. I want to run fast. I want to not get tired when I move as much as they do. I want to be able to kick the ball, throw the ball, whatever, because I suck at doing that. I still suck at doing that. But I'm coming to realize now that isn't my masculinity. That it's still a potential consequence of my masculinity. And again, absolutely in no way does that exclude women from playing ball sports. That's not really the point. Because if it were, as I said, this is why I say this thing, if playing ball sports was a defining trait of masculinity, any woman who played them would become a man, but she doesn't. There's a different way that men and women interact with the world. There's a lot of overlap because we're all human. But what this has ended up being as part of our friendship is that now I am starting to live out my potential from my identity rather than trying to make my activities my identity.
Yes.
So we sat down at the start of our time spending a year on mission to put down some goals for our time as brothers for the mission year on a mission team. And Daniel's like, oh, we should put down some exercise goals. And I'm like dying on the inside, like, oh, I'll commit to it for the sake of the brotherhood, but I'm going to hate it so much. And he's like, yeah, let's do push-ups. I'm like, I can't do push-ups. I can't even do one push-up. This is not a viable way for me to participate in this dimension of masculinity. And he's like, yeah, let's be able to do 50 by the end of the year. And I'm like, bro, you don't understand. I can't do it. And he's like, no, it's going to be fine. And I think our first day I did like one knee push up and then took a hefty like 3-minute break to recover from that, and then did one more. And that was pretty much the end of day one as far as I remember. And then day 2, it was like 2 and 2 or whatever. And we built it up really, really slowly. But the thing that made the difference for me is that this guy who can do a lot more than I can came down to my level and did exactly what I was doing and said, you can do it after every rep.
Wow.
And now I can do it. Like I can, I could not do 50 consecutive push-ups right now. I have not stayed at that level.
But you did.
But and now like it's something that I'm like, okay, this is something I can do. This is something that I can enjoy. This is something that I can, I can delight in my physicality in a way that I couldn't before. And rather than putting my identity in what I can do and then feeling bad about myself because I couldn't do it, now, like, I'm still growing, I'm still learning, I'm still not at a particularly high level athletically at all. But because I'm starting from a place of who I am and who I know I am and who Daniel has seen me to be and revealed that to me through his friendship with me, like I'm living out my identity properly, and that's informing my actions. And that's where the transformation is happening. So that's, I think, what I mean by the difference between the behavioral traits associated with masculinity and what it actually is at the core. I don't know if that really
so what
does
you're
it
saying
justice
is
as a
masculinity
concept,
is not about the physical. Masculinity is something much deeper.
Of course.
Even though we have physically masculine traits and we have tendencies as men.
Tendencies is a great word for it.
Yeah, tendencies as men. It's not necessarily, that's not what being a man actually is.
And if I decided that doing push-ups just really, really wasn't my thing, and that wasn't something I pursued, I don't decrease so much in my masculinity.
Yeah, you're still a man.
And maybe there are other ways that I am called to live out what that means, So it's what I'm saying is like the potential is really high, but you have to approach it from the core outwards rather than otherwise it just becomes a limitation.
Daniel,
That's
I want to ask
you.
Sorry, I want to ask you, Daniel, about the physical. So we've talked about the physical push-ups that you did. Were there any spiritual push-ups that you guys were doing during your time, or you're still you're amongst 5 or 6 other guys, who are helping out on staff, but when you're on team or even now, is there any spiritual exercise that you're doing?
I mean, every day we there's a yoke called Hood Prayer. So you have brotherhood and sisterhood. So in your hoods, you do what period of time you really desire. So we'd usually do like 15 minutes of a hood prayer each night, and it's just sort of to sort of like bring each other back to the same level, bring each other back to the core, be honest with each other. How was your day? Have that vulnerability, and then sort of finish out the day on that. So we done it usually at nighttime, and it was that alone was really beautiful, because it's like, as I said, bringing you back both to the same level, sort of being vulnerable, allowing like that friendship, that brotherhood to flow from you to me to Thomas to me, and then there was many times throughout the year where we done I know there was one time where it was just like it felt like a lot of like spiritual attacks and stuff like that. So we done this sort of like 2-hour long just sort of praising the Lord session, just different things like that. When someone needed it, either one of us, that we'd take that time to sort of sit and pray together, have that vulnerability, and just chat it out. And honestly, like they were like the moments where it really like you went from A to B, B to C, C to D. Like really like strengthened. You put on that armor of Christ, put on the armor of like of brotherhood. You put on the armor of being men of God, and sort of charged at the next obstacle.
I don't know if you've noticed, Daniel and I are from the same place. I'm just sitting here thinking the accent. We do this yoke.
Sorry, yes.
I love it.
Yeah, it's so good.
Schlang.
Like you mentioned vulnerability, and for people who aren't involved in ministry or okay, thanks, Robert. For folks who aren't familiar with what it is that you mean by vulnerability, like what do you mean?
Being honest, just saying how good or bad your day is, saying how you're feeling. I'm having a crap day, whether that be in prayer, whether that be in what you're doing that day, whatever. But just having that conversation of honesty to really like share how you feel and allow the other person to raise you up, because it's like the Lord asks us to live in community, so that when we fall down or don't have the strength to do whatever it is that day, having that other person lift you up and be that crutch that you need to get along that day.
Yeah. And sorry,
and I was just like, and how do you like on the same, I suppose on that same trajectory, do you allow each other then to correct when you see, something's a little off here?
Yeah, I think that's a huge part. That's what I was thinking as you were talking about, like the honesty with each other. It extends to that as well, and that it's a beautiful thing to cultivate the trust that you can give each other correction without fear, but also the trust that if you are correcting somebody, it's done from love rather than
totally.
Because so often, like just in a general sense, like correction is a power play, and it's like, you were wrong, I was right about this. Don't you feel bad now? And it's not really ever said in those words, but that's often the dynamic that's going on underneath. But when it comes to it, when it's like, okay, this was something that you did today, and this is how I perceived it, and and if what happened is what I think it was, then here's an improvement that I think should happen. Because you allow space then for the other person to be like I had no idea that that's what I was doing. Thank you for highlighting that, like whatever it is. But I in certain occasions, I have had certainly on I don't think it ever particularly happened for us, but certainly on previous net teams for like my brothers in ministry and in mission to say to me like, that was stupid and you did that badly and your intentions were wrong, and just highlighting that genuinely and gently. And there's some grace in it as well when you have that like level of love to actually accept it. Because like on a surface level, if somebody says something like that to me, I'm defensive. I'm like, well, you didn't see the full picture and I was doing this because of that.
And wait till I tell you about you.
Right. Yeah. And absolutely, it can really just devolve into that. But to have that be something that has gone on to strengthen a friendship, that's incredible. So I think as well, like it's important to be aware that there is a desire expressed by Jesus specifically, but the way that's expressed in scripture that I really like is Psalm 133, which says, behold how good and pleasant it is when brothers dwell in unity, and goes on to then say, for it is there that God has commanded the blessing, life forevermore. Like eternity is involved in this. This is something like, this isn't just this is nice. This is a nice idea for us while we're just kind of ticking along on earth before we go up to heaven to be like perfect individuals before God. It's like, it's actually
here
our,
and now.
Our journey towards.
And this is part of God's plan for humanity,
right?
Is for, male friendships, female friendships, female friendships.
Absolutely.
But this is how, particularly in a mission environment, this is how we actually proclaim the gospel as men together to other men, other young fellas, young boys, and the same with women to other young women. And the gospel can be received that way more powerfully. Yeah, we found that, and the other thing I would say is, we had, let me just put this out to you and you tell me what you think of this. So I was involved in a project at one stage, and to get the people, it was a secular project, to get the people, and maybe it wasn't, maybe it was just, it was a new project anyway. And we were together and we wanted the group to bond. Okay. So part of the bonding group was that we would tell each other something from our past, not like I was abused as a child or whatever, but something from our past that was a vulnerable sharing, and that we did that, we all did that, and that helped us, bring stuff into the light that was who we were, and it definitely helped the group to bond. And I would say, or I would ask the question: is that something that's part of who you guys are as brothers, and who? Your experience of teams in the past, you've more experience than Daniel. Would you say that vulnerable sharing is a key ingredient to successful male brotherhood, or no?
Absolutely, yes. Like if your goal is actually unity in the way that we're called to it, then there's there is a necessity to know and to be known. Now, of course, we're not perfect, and we have to be aware of that as well. And even in the best of friendships, there's a potential for things to go wrong. It's not even just down to like our own imperfections, like going back to like, this is God's will for us. So it's not the enemy's will for us. He doesn't want this for us. He will fight against it.
He doesn't want vulnerability.
He doesn't want
or
friendship.
Friendship, unity. Yeah. He doesn't want us to love each other.
Yeah.
And so, there's all of that going on in the sort of background. I mean, the great thing about the devil is that he is the loser. And so we don't have to fear that. We have to be aware that, things can go wrong. We're broken. Our vulnerability has its limitations because, I don't have a perfect ability to receive vulnerability from other people, and I don't have a perfect ability to share it. And there's ways that we can get hurt, and there's a risk, and it's a mess. And all of that is worth accepting, I think. But it makes for a very essential.
What about insecurity? Where does that come in? Because we're all insecure. I'm insecure. I'm a lot older than you guys. You're not insecure. But the point is like jealousy, in male friendships, that's a big feature of female friendships, exclusivity and all that sort of thing. Like, does that ever come into it? Or is that something you're like, hey, look, dude, when you said that, I just, made me feel like shit. I mean, does that ever happen?
I think it's only natural that it, like, as Thomas said, that the devil's going to, try attack that, those friendships that you do have. I know for me, there's times where I'm like, gosh, this guy's pure smart or something like that, and I ain't near that smart, So those sort of thing where it's like just little voices in the back of your mind. It's like, oh, look at this person. Oh, he can do, or he can do this, or oh, why can't you do this, or whatever it is. Those little voices in the back, and they do obviously come up, and you have to rebuke them. But
would you ever share those, Daniel, or would you just keep it to yourself?
I mean, there was definitely certainly times, like if as well, especially if it was like something that was causing friction, like on mission, we're living 24/7 with each other. So it's like, you sort of need to iron those things out or it's going to be a pain, So if it was, especially things that were like friction or stuff like that, you'd be like, you'd have to just have that conversation and just be vulnerable and say, look, you can do this thing, or this thing's, teeing me off, whatever it is, Yeah. And
I would have to say, Daniel, my experience of you is that I've always found you intelligent. And it's obvious that Thomas is intelligent. He has 10 years more podcasts than you. Because people don't read anymore.
That's true.
I'm sure you read.
And
Thomas.
also, comparison is the robber of joy.
It is. Yeah. It is. Like there was definitely times last year, like, where especially like the intelligent, or music one was a big one for me as well. I was like, gosh, I can't do half this with, playing the guitar or whatever it was. But them just having that, sort of quiet time with the Lord and being like, no, like, that's a gift he's given, and that's a gift that that Thomas or anybody or, another man can use to bring us closer to God, or to, let's see sporty, that you can have fun on the pitch playing a game of football, whatever it is. Yeah, but it's a gift that they've been given to sort of lift the kingdom,
Totally.
And interestingly, like you gave Daniel that ability to see that he could, not Daniel, Thomas could be more athletic, and you definitely passed on that music to Daniel, because you've really become proficient over that year. So that's a beautiful reciprocity.
Is where the lie of the enemy comes in as well, is that like I still have those moments where I'm like, oh, I'm never going to be as good as him, and I think that actually, there can be some good in that comparison. Because the lie there is, oh, I'm never going to be as good as him. And actually, the truth is that I'm not him. And I am myself. But Daniel has strengths that I don't have, that, as I say, call me out of myself and become a goal. And again, it's not, it doesn't become like, oh, I want to be more like him just for the sake of that. But actually, I have the potential to grow, and here's a way that he's showing me that I can.
And how do you get past, like, because you're literally talking to me there when it comes to being active. Like, I know how good it is for me. I could have my runners on me and drive down drive the kids to school with the intention of going for a walk, and I'll drive back up again. You know, how do you get from that point of like, oh, I'll never be able to actually, yes, I'm going to do this.
Hey, Daniel.
Yeah, I mean,
I was just going to say, I think you need a community element. So whether that's another,
Sure.
woman or for the men, especially, I mean, obviously you can go either way, but especially that feminine on feminine or masculine on masculine to encourage, because as I was saying earlier, everyone has those bad days. There's plenty of days where I don't want to go for a run, but then there's someone there to encourage you or just say, hey, look, did you go for that? Or, did you go for that walk? Or did you do those presses? Or whatever the heck it is, But just that, even that slight 5-second comment of, hey, did you do that? Or are you going to do that? Or, oh, you're getting awful, the muscles are big now. Whatever it is. But they're big encouragement, to push you forward,
I'm also thinking while we're talking here that, so for my book club this month, we're reading a book called Catholic Mom Cam. I know. Anyway, the stuff that's in it is so good. And she talks a lot about, what we speak to ourselves is a self-fulfilling prophecy. So if we said, sure, I'll never be fit. No, I won't. I won't. And whose voice is that? That is, it's the accuser, and it's just for I'm talking to myself here. Like I need to stop listening to that voice and just get the runners on tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning. No, I understand. I mean, with anything, he always tries to discourage. That's one of the biggest lies, that he will discourage you from praying, from exercise, from playing instruments, whatever it is.
And it's so interesting. I didn't experience brotherhood until I came to Net. That's like 20 years ago. But I went to Net training in Canada, and I remember it very well. Somehow I ended up with the Netters on a weekend that the staff bazzed off somewhere. And I shouldn't say they bazzed off. They had something on and they forgot about me. So I was lumped in with the Netters. And it was just like, afterwards they were like, how did that happen? I think they had a debrief of how that happened, that I was left with the Netters. Anyway, I'm left with the Netters and I'm in my late 30s, early 40s. And there's this guy, Joe Button was his name. And he was an Australian good looking fella in his late 20s and he designed boats. And I find myself comparing myself to him. And I'm like, and thinking, I could never be as cool as him. And it became a thing, that in my head. I started to get stressed out about it, but I didn't realize, first of all, I didn't know myself well enough. Second of all, I didn't know the spiritual life well enough. I was on the board, not running it at the time. But looking back, it was a pure attack. The enemy was getting at me at my weakest point, whereas I didn't know that being me was good enough, as Thomas says, and he's different. And okay, he might be cool, he might be a great boat designer and all the rest. And, but I'm me and there's lots of stuff I'm good at, but that me being good at stuff is not who I am. Me being a son of God is who I am. A son of the Father is who I am.
I'd like to say just a little bit about encouragement. I'm a word nerd. So encouragement, comes from the word for the heart. So encouragement is like putting the heart into someone. Discouragement is taking the heart out of someone. So it's a heart to heart movement. So when Daniel encourages me, that's a heart-to-heart movement. Like there's a heart-to-heart intimacy that is going on there, even in something as simple as saying, oh, you can do it,
Yeah.
That has been transformational for my prayer life because they're on a much deeper level, but in a very similar way, there's a heart-to-heart intimacy that we're called to have with Jesus. And it can be a lot easier to access that in our friendship because Daniel's here in a physical sense, in a way that Jesus is present in a much more profound way, perhaps. But for my humanity, there's an ease of access to this sort of heart-to-heart intimacy in our friendship. And then when I apply that to my prayer life, that unlocks so much. Like that just opens the door to a deeply consoling, powerful prayer life. Where I'm able to be like, well, I have this heart-to-heart access with the King of the universe. He's on my side. I'm on his side. And he's the initiator. He's the encourager. He is putting his heart into me. I mean, that happens in a particularly sacramental way, of course, when you receive communion. That's like pretty much what is going on. And that's just amazing. And then that just unlocks a new level of fearlessness for me as well. Because like, man, Jesus is on my side. And because of that, I don't have to be scared of anything. And because I'm not relying on myself anymore. You know, in the same way that, you know, the two of us go into, I don't know, maybe we're playing music for an event or something, and we're doing it together. And I know this isn't all resting on me, which is a great feeling. Like, how much more so with Jesus in this spiritual life? Like, and but that has really been a key to my understanding.
Totally. And I can't help thinking when you guys are talking that, you know, one or both of you might get married. In terms of your future marriage, your future spouses, and your relationship with them, how good this is. First of all, you get to know yourself in relation to yourself. Then you get to know yourself in relation to another person, and the you know, the intimacy with which, like, that marriages work for years to get to the level that you are at as friends. And again, we're not comparing the two. The two are different, but the fact that you actually know each other well enough to actually, this is what's really going on with me. You know, like when we started to get to the point where we were able to say, this is what's really going on with me. I'm really just insecure, you know, and that's why I'm behaving badly. You know, that's why I'm slamming the door.
That took us a lot of years of marriage to get to that point. Yeah. I remember the moment that we did, actually. I remember it. Yeah.
Was it post-net or pre-net?
It was totally post-net.
Yeah. And so net taught us to figure out who it is we are.
I'll actually tell you, I remember knowing that I needed to apologize for something because, you know, this is what we're hearing, all the talks and everything. And I needed to ask for forgiveness, but it was like, you know, like I couldn't do it. It was so foreign to anything I had ever experienced before that I actually wrote you a letter. Do you remember that?
No.
Sorry. You know, but that was my first step towards this vulnerability and this recognition of, okay, my actions are because of how I was feeling.
Growing up as a young man in Ireland, I really appreciated the net ministry teams in my surrounding area. They really encouraged and fanned the flame of my Catholic faith. Then going on to do net, I was really encouraged by the support I received both financially and spiritually. Net still needs this support. So please, if you can, click on the link below to start a monthly donation, however big or small, to encourage young men and women as missionaries in Catholic Ireland. God bless.
It's how we're reared. Ultimately, you know, an apology is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a liberating thing that is important for us as Christians to be able to.
Yeah, but I would say
together.
It's not really part of our Irish culture. Would you say, Daniel?
No, I think there's you guys have heard the term traditional masculinity, or, you know, traditional
toxic masculinity, or
well, have you heard it's a lot of old like poetry. We would have studied it for Leaving Cert, and it refers to how like men in the past they didn't share their feelings. Like they'd go out and do like a father on son would go out. The father would go out and build the son a tree house or something, and that would how he showed he loved, and then vice versa for different ways with the woman. I think that definitely I think that's slowly disappearing, and I think it's slowly getting better. But that very much I think still is in Ireland. And I suppose going back to what you guys were just talking about before, like if I can't be vulnerable with other men, how am I going to be vulnerable with women? You know, like, and vice versa. Do you know? You can be to a certain element, I suppose, but the really deep things, like, you know, if you can't tell that to a friend, like your best friends or your best mates, you're going to really struggle with that, or certain elements at least of it, you know.
Totally.
And this is something as well that, like, my friends who are dating and getting married now are telling me that, you know, there's so many levels to this, and obviously marriage is not part of my life experience right now, so you guys can like let me know if I'm like way out of line here. But you know, what I'm hearing is that you have all of these elements going on. You have this this friendship element. You have the prayer element as well. I've seen like people experiencing so much freedom when they realize that they are going to the person they're dating or the person they're married to with the problems. They should be taking to Jesus first, and like making they've unlocked that intimacy, that heart-to-heart intimacy, but they haven't unlocked the heart-to-heart intimacy with Jesus. And that's like where their support comes from. And they're putting this burden on the person they're dating or the person they're married to be a savior in a way that they can't. But then on the flip side of that as well, like as I'm saying, like my experience is that the sort of person to person human earthly heart to heart is unlocking the experience of the heart to heart with Jesus. And that is one of the reasons, not the be all and end all, but one of the reasons why male and female friendships are so important is because, because of human nature, for most people, feelings are going to get involved in a male-female friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not ready for that to potentially become a dating relationship, then you're getting into a lot there with that type of sharing that in a sort of, in a same-sex friendship, you're able to actually unlock this really deep level of heart-to-heart communication that unlocks this understanding of your relationship with God and the realization that actually the relationship with God is much more foundational. And that then gets brought into the dating relationship, into the marriage relationship later on when you're able to kind of access that.
So are you talking about emotional chastity? Is that...
I guess that's an element of what I'm talking about, yeah. And I've heard a lot of different terms for that as well.
Yeah,
I think he's talking about God first, marriage second, in that order, kids next, that order, and work next, and then fun after that.
I guess the intersection with emotional chastity is just that emotional chastity can, for I guess the majority of humans, it's going to be difficult in a male-female friendship. It's not an impossibility.
What I would say is, as a woman, if a guy opens his heart to me, I'm uncomfortable.
Because you're formed.
Yeah, but I'm uncomfortable because it's a level of intimacy that is not appropriate. I feel it depends. It depends, and say pre-marriage or pre-meeting you, I would see it as a potential interest. This person is potentially interested in me because they're sharing their heart with me.
There can be an unintentional communication of interest, maybe from the man to the woman.
Yes, or vice versa.
Indeed.
Or vice versa, yeah.
Also, like we tend to try and get, or the culture tends to try and get in the way of good male friendships for whatever reason. I remember them talking about, was it King David and his good friend Jonathan, and like David really wept when Jonathan died, and like I heard a secular piece saying that they were clearly gay men, and that, like, why do we have to feel like we have to destroy that? They weren't. They were just good friends, and David missed his good friend, and it's the
same in the Augustine's Confessions. Like, he really went into a dark place when he lost his good friend.
Yeah,
I think it's perhaps a symptom of the fact that at least it seems to me, our culture can't conceive of love that doesn't involve sexuality somehow.
Well put.
Yeah, I would understand that the world is hypersexualized, and everything comes back to that. And then I suppose also what I would also, I think for me, which is a big thing, is that like the culture as well has, indeed on on women as well, and on the family, but there's a big attack on men. I think I was recently reading something about Brendan Gleeson talking about how he's tired of how fathers in movies are portrayed as always like sort of douches and piles of crap, whatever, and he's like, there is good men out there. And then the same with male on male friends. You see all these articles about, oh, they're gay, or oh, they're this thing and that thing, because they had good conversations, or they were
in touch with their feelings.
In touch with their feelings. Yeah. And all these things. And if you keep hearing that, why would you? You would be, and for me, I know certainly for many years, hearing that sort of stuff would make me a bit more skeptical at the very least, even though I had that upbringing where I had those sort of opportunities. And, even still hearing that constantly from the news, hearing that constantly on social media, seeing that in movies, it's going to have like an effect. And, and it is an attack from the devil, I think, like most certainly, that he doesn't want those friendships. He doesn't want those relationships,
And when do you become a man? Like, at what stage? My nephew turned 18 recently, and I'm looking at him like, you look like a fella, you look like a man, but are you a man just because of that number, or when does that happen? Because in cultures going back in the day, like Robert's here, he's from Uganda, and he's manning the desk. Robert was talking this morning about the culture that he comes from in Uganda, that you become a man whenever you get circumcised. And, at whatever age that is, as an adult. And that's pretty painful and it's pretty extreme. But like, at what stage do we become men?
I mean, I think there's far smarter people who debate and go back and forth. These good. But for me, I think it's something that people grow into at different stages. That for some people it could be something when you're 15. In the past it seemed to be that the age people were married off, or the age people done this thing and that thing was 15 or 16. Whereas now it seems to have gotten older. I think really it just depends on.
What age are you, Daniel?
I'm 20 next week.
20 next week. Wow.
I'll just round it up.
Are you a man?
I would say yeah. I think.
Why do you say that?
I would say maturity is a big factor in it. But I think it's something you grow into and something you're sort of bestowed by especially your father. I think you just sort of, I don't know. It's a difficult question. It's just something you feel.
Yeah, totally.
I don't think anyone could put a thing. Oh, you Tony became a man at 16. Oh, you Thomas became a man at 17. I think it's something that each individual person, finds out and sort of grows into, whether that be with true maturity and different factors. But I don't think you could put a exact number on it.
Yeah, I think it's important to say as well that we talk about becoming a man, but we already are. It's not, but there's an actualization.
Genetically, we're
right, exactly.
Of the male species, or the male, whatever that is. You know what I mean?
Separate species. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely not a separate species. But okay, so our DNA dictates that we're male,
right,
as opposed to female. But there's a difference between a boy, an adolescent boy, and a man,
right? And I think
both emotionally, at some, so in cultures going back in the day, they had rites of initiation for men, this was part of our culture and something that we've actually lost in the West. And before the Industrial Revolution, it was an agrarian economy. Kids grew up at home. The dad was at home. He was working at home, and he mightn't have been subsistent, but it was pretty close. He was either the blacksmith, or he was doing the baker or something, or he was the farmer, and he grew particular crops. And the kids grew up around the dad. And the dad bestowed maleness upon he bestowed masculinity upon his sons, and they would have been helping him in the fields or helping him do whatever it was he did. It was a family business essentially. And that doesn't happen because the dads are leaving and they're commuting and they're going somewhere else and whatever. So the boys don't get to see what the dad does. So, in terms of, if I do what daddy does, I will be a man kind of thing,
I think that's also then where you have this really toxic culture of let's say you have the likes of Andrew Tate and stuff like that, who are coming in now because there's that void. So they're filling that void of, if you sleep around, if you achieve this amount of wealth, you're become a man. You have 10 girls, that's something like Andrew. It's you have all these baby mamas, have children with different women, then you're a man. There's 100%, there is that void now of people not knowing.
Yeah, and you can understand why the culture would turn against that sort of masculinity, because that's not really what it is to be a man.
I think as Daniel was saying, you can also see the void that he is filling. It's unfortunate that he is, because he's not portraying masculinity, or very, very warped version of it. But I think, it's that actualization of masculinity, that that thing that is within you that you haven't grasped yet. And
it's the what of masculinity?
Actualization.
Okay.
You're getting this, you're getting this, I guess, example from a father figure that's unlocking for you how to do what he does or be like who he is. But I think this is both a moment and an ongoing process. That's been my experience.
Well put. Are you a man, Thomas?
I think I am, but I'm still becoming one. Because you're talking about rites of passage, and I think that's important.
Yeah, but at least you think you are. In terms of at where you're at.
But I want to as well kind of sidestep the idea that you do a rite of passage and then you're done.
But is a rite of passage necessary in your opinion?
I think so. I think so.
Why?
Because I think about it in the same way as a faith conversion, in a sense. It's it's a moment where you realize, okay, yeah, this is a thing. This is a real thing. This is, you go through an experience maybe or whatever, and you're shown this threshold you can step over and go, okay, this is the potential that I have within me, and this is where I follow the example of those who have gone before me to step into what I'm capable of as a man. But then you have to keep stepping, you know?
I was thinking exactly the same thing. I was thinking of like all the doctors of the church have written about the 3 stages of the interior life. And it's the initial conversion, but it's an ongoing journey until we get to heaven.
Absolutely. Because I would have said that I had been through a rite of passage. I would have said that I had gotten to that stage where I was like, okay, yes, this is, you know, we're doing it. I'm still growing so much. And I can see and this is a recurring theme in my life where I've gone through a moment of transformation and gone, nice, made it, this is great. And then very easily just sliding into a sense of worthlessness because I just stagnate there. And I'm like, I'm actually not it, you know? It's, you know, there's more. Yeah. But it, you know, the enemy, the devil wants me to feel worthless, doesn't want me to feel worthwhile, doesn't want me to feel good or strong or holy or any of these other things that I have bestowed on me through the way that I've been created. But that becomes a moment of victory as well, because I'm able to actually say, well, there actually is another step to take, and there's always going to be.
And it's a process all the time. You know, as you guys are talking, I'm thinking about myself and, you know, the men that I look up to, and they're usually older men, you know, with a fully complete white beard all the way through. And, you know, like I think your Uncle Paddy's a great man. He's 87 years of age. I really think he's a great man. Your father is a great man. My dad was a good man. And it's but I think one of my favorite men, and I met him several times, was Father Raniero, now Cardinal Raniero Cantalamessa. He was preacher of the papal household. Just extremely joyful, you know, next level holy and beautiful, like a beautiful, beautiful soul. And he radiated this beauty. And it's, I want to be like that someday. And he just poured out wherever he went. He poured out, you know, and it wasn't so much in what he said or, you know, it was just, he was totally present, totally there for other people, totally there for, you know, us as a group, a small group of people who were in this company. And yeah, it was just beautiful. And lots of.
We had a talk on net training this year for the men's training specifically. On masculinity from Dominican priest Father Connor McDonough.
He's coming on the show.
Awesome. Yeah, such a good guy. But I just I remember just being kind of bowled over by that, because I've heard a lot of talks about masculinity and they've been phenomenal. Like it's all good stuff.
What was it? I've heard you guys talk about this, and I didn't happen to be there whenever he gave that talk. What was it about his talk that was so good?
It was centered on Jesus, and like that. I'm surprised that I was surprised by that. It was, I mean, he talks about masculine figures in scripture generally, but he was like, you know, we actually, as Catholics, as Christians, we have this model of masculinity that is actually perfect. And it's not like, oh, that's kind of good, but we actually have perfection to look up to. And Jesus invites us to perfection. Like those are his words to us, is be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. And that was just phenomenal, because it just, again, broke apart the idea that, you know, I'm aiming for such and such a target or such and such a whatever. It comes back to this, you know, this potential in me is unlocked through relationship rather than like comparison or whatever it is, you know.
And the difficulty with having Jesus as our model is that he actually died on the cross, you know, and that's what we're actually not necessarily to call. We're not necessarily called to die on a cross or to lay our lives down in martyrdom, but to have white martyrdom, to
pick up our crosses,
be there for others, and live our lives for others, and not for ourselves.
What a bold statement from Jesus as well, to tell his disciples to pick up their cross and follow him before his crucifixion.
Yeah,
they must have been like, I mean, they were like, what on earth is going on? And, you know, you have that moment where Peter is like, oh, don't be ridiculous, Jesus. Just, come on.
What are you talking
about? Stop saying
about
these things. And his response is like, get behind me, Satan. Like this is a part of our calling. It's a challenge. And it's, if we were to face this under our own strength, I'd be scared to death.
Mm.
I would not ever do anything. But because of everything that we're talking about, fearlessness is a possibility. And I don't mean like fearlessness in a sort of imprudent or reckless sense. And you just do whatever because, sure, it'll be grand. Jesus is with me, That's not the point. But the point is that, where he calls me, I can go without fear.
Do you ever worry? But that was one of my things in my own personal spiritual journey is like, okay, so Jesus is there for everybody and he looks after everybody. And it says in the Bible that he looks after everybody. But what about the famine? What about the really hard things that happened in people's lives where he clearly wasn't there for people? Like, do you ever think about that? And does that scare you, Daniel?
I think that, they're not nice situations. Like they're, very hard situations, but like there's that saying that people only really cry for help when they reach the bottom of the barrel, and it's like, how many people in those sort of situations reached out to, our Lord and, as they were dying or something like that, had major conversions. We just don't know those sort of things. I heard a really good homily on that before. And it's just like, same with the floods. It's like, how many of those people cried out for help, as the floods were happening? We don't know, only the Lord knows how many of those people, but it's in those sort of situations that hopefully, please God, they cry out for that,
Yeah, and I think it's important for us as Christians to lean into that. We say that God looks after us and our lives are fulfilled whenever we live our lives in God, but yet it's somehow contradictory that bad things happen to good people. And
He didn't say our lives would be easy.
Amen.
Yeah, take up your cross doesn't sound like an easy
No.
life.
Yeah.
But
do you know what I mean?
Saying,
you know what I mean?
And
we're sold this idea that once we have God in our lives, that all our problems are over, which is not the truth.
No.
The truth
Right.
is once we have God in our lives will probably be harder. But with him, we can carry the cross.
Absolutely. I didn't grow up Catholic. I was always a Christian. But when I really wanted to make my faith my own, that decision led me towards Catholicism. And a big part of my sort of journey with that is that it's one of those moments in my life where I thought, I became Catholic, I was received into the church, I was confirmed, all of that. And I thought I'd made it. Like I really thought, oh, wow, my faith journey has led me here.
You're done.
Wonderful. This is going to be so good. And it wasn't. It was really, really, really tough. And, I don't need to get into the details of like the difficulties of, especially my like later teenage life. I think that's difficult for everybody. But I got into some rough places there where I was just like really questioning, is my life worth it? I was never like suicidal. I was never really in that spot, but I was pretty low in terms of like, well, I guess I'm settling for this existence, which I don't love, and it's not great. And that became a moment where I knew that I needed help. And that has become one of the moment of prayer that led into has become like foundational for the way that I live my faith today. But it happened in the context of conversation. I had a conversation with a priest. I told him everything that I was thinking, all the things I was thinking about myself, about my life, about how I didn't think it was really going to go anywhere and I didn't really have that much potential. And through that conversation, he was able to illustrate to me that just simply wasn't true. And that was on a very sort of intellectual level. And I was like, okay, I guess I can kind of see that. But then he asked to pray for me. And I was like, sure.
He asked you to pray for him?
No, he asked if he could pray for me.
Okay.
I was like, yeah, sure, that can't hurt kind of thing. And so he starts to pray for me. He lays his hands on my head. And I wasn't super used to that sort of prayer. So I was like, okay, this is like very sort of biblical, intense kind of thing that's going on. He just really prayed that I would understand how much Jesus loves me. And it was actually Eucharistic adoration going on at the time. And we were just kind of sitting in the corner. And I remember just looking up into the monstrance, into the real presence of Jesus, and knowing that he loved me so deeply. And I cried a lot. But it was very, very freeing, upbuilding, strengthening. I came out of that encounter completely different. And I've had more encounters like that in prayer since then.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the first time I was really like, oh, this is the way that Jesus sees me. When I think my situation is hopeless, when I think everything's gotten to the best it's ever going to be, and actually to have that heart-to-heart encounter, it's become the model for the way that I hope to encourage other people as well, to be actually able to speak truth into people's circumstances and situations. I mean, just on a psychological level, especially in fatherhood, and I think this extends to spiritual fatherhood as well. Like what a father says to his children affects them hugely.
Massive.
And the yeah, I mean, that's where we get blessing and curse from. To bless, benedicere, is to say a good word. To curse, maledicere, is to say a bad word. That's at the root what we mean when we say those things. And our speech, like as you were saying earlier, influences our reality in a sense.
So if a dad, like just to put it in secular terms, if a dad is saying to his son, "You're a little bollocks," or whatever it is, even in jest,
right.
even in jest, and you've had to call me out and different things. It's really important that we speak blessing over our kids,
right? And
not just our sons, but our wives as well.
But that extends to our spiritual
fatherhood.
And yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that extends to our spiritual fatherhood as men. Like we're all called to spiritual fatherhood. It's not reserved for only people who are older or people who are biological fathers or priests. Like we're called to bless the world around us, and there's a specific way that we can as men do that. And it's not to say that, that women can't bless either. It's not, that's not what I'm saying, but there is a dimension of blessing that masculinity contains that we should be exercising. And that is huge. Like that changes everything.
Yeah. And it's interesting that they've discovered recently in the last 30 years that when men are involved in their faith, the women and children will follow. When men are not involved in their faith, there's a 20% chance that kids will actually have faith. The other way around, when men are involved in the faith, there's an 80% chance that kids, or 80% or higher, it's more like 90%, that the children will actually be involved in their faith. So what a lot of the Protestant evangelical churches have done is they've gone after the men because they realize once they have the men, the women and children will follow because of what you're talking about. And we wish, the feminists might wish that it could be so different, but that's just how we're made.
But there's a shift, like there is a shift now in the last few years where it is men that are being attracted back to the church.
Yeah, I think I love speaking about hope. So like I so many times you hear so much negativity about the Catholic Church or about men or about women in the Catholic Church or this problem or whatever. But yeah, you look at France where 10,000 young adults and pretty much the majority of those were men came into or be baptized this Easter alone. You look at Ireland. Even
it's happened in Ireland as well.
In Ireland,
I think there were 15 or 18 in Galway city alone.
I think it was something like a 5%. It was. I mean, it sounds, and with the percentages, it's still a thing. But that's beautiful. That's amazing. So there is hope, and it is rising, and that's all across the world. You look at the States as well. I think there's 1 million Christians, not specifically Catholic, but 1 million people in general coming into Christianity. So there's huge uplifting hope,
Totally. A lot
I just read an article in the Herald. It was actually Father Columba who was being interviewed, and he said that he's seeing it in their youth group down in Limerick, that it was all, when they first went there, it was all girls, and now it's predominantly guys.
And they're older as well. So the quality in terms of age has actually increased. And, that's something that we attract a lot of men on net as well, thankfully. And because their experience of brotherhood is really, really good.
And when it comes to proclaiming the gospel as well, like it's so important to be able to actually, we kind of root a lot of what we do in the thresholds of intentional discipleship. And so trust is a big thing in that you can't really listen to somebody if you don't have a certain level of trust. And being able to, step out as men into the world and just be an example that fosters so much goodness and blessing is an essential first step in evangelization. Like you can, some people are going to be brought into the church through intellectual apologetics. I'm one of those people. But I had a heart-to-heart faith. I had a Christian faith before that.
Did you, and I'm interested, was your encounters with Jesus exclusively limited to your time as a Catholic, or did you have them as an Anglican?
Oh, absolutely had them as Anglican.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
And I think it's, what I encountered in the Catholic Church was just a little kind of side note. What I encountered in the Catholic Church was certainty in like proclaiming the truth. And that was very, very attractive to me. And that's really important. And we can't get away from that. We can't reduce our faith to, it feels good to be Catholic, because that's not the point. But there's also...
It should feel good to be Catholic,
yes,
to be fair.
What do you mean by certainty?
The Catholic Church has
papal succession, for example.
Well, yeah, it has magisterial teaching. So there is like a certainty in church teaching, which is like, this is what it is because of this. It's well explained. It's well, and that really, really drew me in. But there are other attractive elements of the church, and one of those is joy. And so
were Anglicans not joyful?
Well, no, Anglicans are definitely very joyful.
I just want to be clear on what you mean.
What I'm talking about now is less the sort of my transition from Anglicanism to Catholicism, but more like proclaiming or demonstrating the joy of the Catholic faith simply by the way that we live, especially as men, because there is this whole stereotype about like we don't show our feelings and we're, the tough guy, whatever. And it's not to say that we can't be tough. We can and we should. Like there's a strength in us as well, but there's a joy that we get to express in being who we are, in being sons of God, and that's why that call to live out your masculinity, especially as a Catholic, is so essential. And I would go as far as to say we can't evangelize effectively without it, especially to men. And yeah, I mean, I just on a very simple level, just at the youth club we had helped to run last year, the guys kicking a ball around with Daniel was actually such a joy to watch, because he really loved it, and that was infectious, and they really loved it, and it was just you could see the blessing happening in that place. And that was before we got to any of the let's talk about Jesus, but I don't think we could have gotten anywhere near where we did with the let's talk about Jesus if we didn't have that joy going into it.
And a ball.
Yeah.
Need the ball.
Have you any more questions, Sheena?
Are we wrapping up? Is that what you're saying?
I'm just wondering, do you have any more questions?
I do. What was I going to ask? There was something in my head and it's gone now.
It'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Have you any questions for us, like in terms of how does masculinity affect a marriage? Any of that? And like at the end of the day, NET has been or being an active ministry that has been formed over, at this stage, 45 years. And to get the benefit of all that formation has been such a huge blessing on me personally. And hopefully it's definitely been a blessing on our marriage. But you've also been formed as somebody who has, being part of the ministry and helping other people can't help but help us.
What would you say is the biggest thing, like from male on male friendships that you've taken into marriage? Like if you could sum that, the biggest thing by far, or is there one, or is it just numerous?
Yeah, no, there's I think just being yourself, like being myself, not trying to pretend to be anybody else, and not try to pretend to be the guy who designed boats and all that sort of thing. Like to be myself, and be myself is just good enough. And I'm going to make mistakes, and that's okay. It's just part of who I am. It's part of being human, and go easy on myself, and hopefully go easy on others, and love others as well.
And can I then throw that question at Sheena? Or is there anything, like, is there a sort of top of the board thing you've seen then from Tony having like those male on male friendships, how that's reflected in your sort of marriage?
What do you mean?
Like sort of from his friendships with other men.
Yeah.
Is there any like way, like let's say the witness that the other men are to Tony or something like that you've really seen that's been like,
about the guys booking me in for golf.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Yeah. Like Tony showed me his phone today, and he was like, he felt really loved because one of the guys put his name down for golf Saturday morning, when it's as important for you to be seen as it is and sometimes I think we overemphasize, women's feelings and how important it is for us to be seen and to be complimented and sought after. It's equally important for you.
Yeah, and I'm usually the one that's organizing stuff.
Yeah.
It's just part of who I am, proactive and all that sort of thing. So it was nice that somebody saw me and thought of me. And it was like, I just said to Sheena, I feel really loved by the fact that my name is down on the board. Awesome. Somebody else didn't even ask me, could have put it down, and they put it down. And I'm like, oh, that's so nice,
I was thinking actually of something you said earlier, Thomas, about that whole hierarchy of order and who we go to figure things out, with God first, and in a marriage you can tend to overburden each other, and I think that was something I learned in our early marriage, was that excuse me, there's when we got married, like there was this kind of thing, it's just us now, and we have to be the ones to tell all our secrets and every single emotion I'm having in my entire life. And it was after a while I just began to realize, actually, that's just too much.
Too much for me to handle.
Too much for you to handle.
Yeah.
But I still needed to be able to articulate and talk about it. And I realized then the value of female friendships from that point of view, and also to be that for somebody else. But I do see that, there's a danger there of isolating yourself, and becoming just an island, the two of you. So that from that point of view, it's a danger, but also from the point of view of just becoming introspective as a couple, that it's really important, like we talked about earlier, about that whole correction thing, that there's other people in your life to call you on and to say, or to be an example, Yeah. There you go.
There you go. Any other questions?
Yeah, a question that I had for you is so looking at all of the time that you have
hopefully I'll understand the question, Thomas.
Yeah,
tone it down a bit.
Looking at all the time that you guys have been with Net, and especially the men that you've seen come through, and we've talked a lot about the experience of brotherhood and male friendship in the Net context, but for you guys, how have you seen that then play out once people move on from Net as a ministry? Like, are we living in an idealistic bubble here? Because I'm still with Net. This is my 6th year now with the organization. Or does that actually, I've seen that continue in people that I know have moved on, but more long term, like what are the fruits of that you've seen?
Yeah, I suppose I can answer that first. A great question, like Daniel's. We don't have to look past our own family to see the fruit of Net in men's lives. We're fiery in Foys. The Foys are fiery, and we'll say exactly what we're thinking. Sometimes that's not nice, or it's unfiltered and all that sort of thing. But my sons have a way of actually resolving conflict. It's not perfect at all, but they have a way of resolving conflict, which has been ingrained in them through their experience with Net, that they wouldn't probably be friends now if it wasn't for Net. Because it's just they're big, huge personalities, and they're a lot for each other. But they're able to figure it out because they're able to have the conversations about, look, this is just what's going on with me. I really want to be in your life, but you're shunning me, and they can be vulnerable like that, and maybe I'm too much for you, and that sort of thing. It sounds like women talking to each other, but that's just the sort of conversations my sons are able to have. And they have the crack, they play golf together, and, they have a few drinks together and whatever else, but they're able to have those type of conversations. And I know they're having these conversations because they're telling me, and it's really, really, they just, that wasn't part of the conversations between me and my brothers. We're just not formed that way. And it's not that my brothers aren't great, we're just not formed that way. And, so that there's a better chance of them staying together as brothers because of that and their ability to work things out, and whatever. Yeah. What would you say, Sheena?
What I thought of when you asked that question was the growth of the small group culture here in Ballybuffet and in the surrounding area. And Like initially I was in a small group with a couple of different women who had done net or were on staff or on the periphery of the community. And now it's beautiful. Like there's people who have done net and not done net, and they're meeting once a week, and they're having that intimate friendship relationship that surpasses the surface level interests. Because there's a hole in each of us to be seen. And yes, we ultimately can only fill that hole by spending time in prayer. But we also can receive it, as you said, heart to heart with other people. So that small group culture is definitely something that this community has benefited from net. It's like an extension of that brotherhood in normal life.
That's really awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where are you at in your spiritual life, Sheena?
Oh, this is the final question we ask is what is there something that the Lord is kind of revealing to you at the moment, or something in particular you've read, or some thing that you're like, have I thought about this question? I was thinking about this morning, actually, which is weird, that I don't want to answer this question as a rehearsed answer or to fill a void that just to make it sound good. And it's okay for me to say, actually, no, at the moment,
there's nothing going on.
There is nothing. And maybe that's because of the season of busyness, and I do feel like prayer time has been stunted a little bit. But
and that's vulnerability.
Yeah.
That's actually the truth builds friendship. And at the end of the day, I'm knackered. We spent the last long weekend up and down the country like a fiddler's elbow trying to fix net cars. And so, we didn't get really to have a break at all. So I'm taking tomorrow off. I'm going to have a weekend together and turning the phone off. So exhausted, feel spiritually drained, emotionally drained. The both of us.
Fixing cars is another classic expression of masculinity, I think.
and I wasn't fixing them myself, just getting other people to fix them.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
I am really just enjoying my time with Our Lady.
Nice.
I used to have a really big devotion to Our Lady, but I think in the last year and a half, it sort of fell off a little bit. So really just getting back into the groove of that and really just meditating on that, which I forgot how much I loved it. So really just chilling with Our Lady.
Yeah, it's inspiring. Thomas, what about you?
Yeah, I think so. I recently spent a couple of weeks in the States, and I was just thinking about this through the lens of comparison as well, like we were talking about. And just seeing the way that the church is in the States is really awesome, because there's a lot of good things. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of awesome things going on over there. And there's a part of me that's like, oh, none of this is happening in Ireland. And that has really lit a fire in me. And that's become actually we have the potential to grow, to move forward, to continue to deepen our as the church in Ireland, to deepen our devotion to the Eucharist in the same way that the church in the States is doing at the moment. So it started off as sort of these guys have it all figured out. I mean, they don't have it all figured out. It's not perfect, as they say, but that has become an encouragement that that is a possibility. And that's I don't know, that sounds like a very general thing about the state of the nation or whatever, but that's become a really internal
that's such a
fire
good
as
disposition
well
to have
for me.
And
that's something that I'm now just becoming more and more passionate about rather than discouraged about.
That's so interesting, because when we first went to St. Paul, Minnesota, we had exactly the same reaction. It was just like, this is Disneyland. It was just, it was amazing. Everybody was up and out for 7 a.m. adoration, confessions, mass, and then you started your workday.
See, I showed up, and one of the first things that happened to me was Sunday mass, after which there was the 9th annual parish potluck and cider pressing. So it's cider in the American sense. So what we would call apple juice.
Apple juice, yeah.
But it was great. everybody showed up with their crates of apples.
Mm.
Everybody, like, all of the young lads were like, it was a sort of manual hand cranked cider press. And all the young lads were like, give me a turn at that. I want to turn the handle. I want to put the apples in. I want to turn the thing that pushes them down and squeezes all the juice out. And then it was a lot of fun.
Mm.
And just seeing like that level of community. And then everyone who brought in the apples, everyone takes a couple big jugs of apple cider away with them at the end. And you just get this, you know, and the parish priest is there. He's like apple juice up to his elbows, just kind of going at it. Yeah, just a beautiful little bit of community in the parish context, which is just amazing.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
There's
Thank
hope.
you. There's hope.
Yes.
Absolutely. You're so right.
Go order your cider press.
Daniel and Thomas, thanks so much for taking the time out to chat with us about masculinity and manhood and all that good stuff. And Sheena, thank you for being here. Robert, we really appreciate you. Thank you for your service, and we'll chat soon. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. It's free. Share with your family and friends. Enjoy.